Welcome to the Midnight Narrator, where every story holds a dark secret and every whisper tells a chilling truth. Tonight's tale, The Solstice Trials, unravels the chilling tradition of a secluded mountain village, where young lives are tested, secrets are revealed, and the line between sacrifice and survival blurs. What drives a community to such extremes? And what happens when rebellion sparks within the shadows of tradition? Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. They called it the selection. It occurred annually during the summer solstice, and if you reached your 18th rotation on that day, any elder in the community could recommend you for participation, for any reason. It was said the trials were meant to appease the mountain spirits, ensuring a bountiful harvest and protecting the village from misfortune. But whispers spoke of darker origins, of a time when the trials served a far more sinister purpose. A local artisan, Master Elmsworth, who crafted intricate clockwork mechanisms, suffered from tremors in his hands. The morning after the previous year's event, he presented me, the first 17-year-old he encountered, with a complex repair project and declared me his apprentice. And if you don't calibrate these gears perfectly, he warned, a glint in his eye, I'll recommend you for next year's selection. The previous participants were barely recovered. Every afternoon, I toiled in his workshop. I didn't object. I simply counted the rotations until I was free from his lectures on precision. My 18th rotation and the day of the selection arrived quickly. I was in Oakhaven, a secluded mountain village repairing a damaged weather vane atop the community hall. All recommendations had to be submitted before nightfall, so I reasoned that if I remained diligent for a few more hours, I would be safe. Then, at the base of the ladder, someone cleared their throat. A village elder stood there, adorned with ceremonial robes and a wooden staff. Formal attire for delivering unwelcome news, I supposed. I briefly considered descending the other side of the roof. A fall might be preferable. But what if I only sustained injuries? No ailment would excuse me from the evening's proceedings. I climbed down. Across the square, Master Elmsworth looked up from his workbench. The elder announced, "Greetings, Silas. I have some unfortunate news. You have been recommended as a candidate." He presented me with my notice, marked with the village symbol. "Report to the observation point at the third bell. Bring no sustenance, water, or objects that could be used as a tool. Any inquiries?" I hesitated. "Who is my sponsor?" "Elder Thorne." Dread washed over me. Elder Thorne was known for his rigorous physical training and unwavering adherence to tradition. "But I barely know him. Why me?" The elder, ignoring my question, marked my name on his scroll and departed. "Hey, are you neglecting your work?" Master Elmsworth shouted, rushing over, his face flushed. "Get back up there or I'll recommend you for the selection myself." "I've already been recommended." Oh. He checked his own time device. "Well, the gathering doesn't commence for several more rotations. We still have time to complete this repair." Despite the situation, I felt a flicker of dark humor. I needed to see if my companions had received similar notices. I removed my tools. "Master Elmsworth," I said, "I must attend to a personal matter." His reaction was priceless. I only wished I had a recording device. On my way through the village, I saw several other 18-year-olds from my circle, diligently assisting others. A few more rotations, and they would be safe. Leaving the village was prohibited until after one's 18th rotation on the night of the selection. The villagers took any attempts at evasion very seriously. Oakhaven had one general store, one library, and one tea shop, where I saw Elder Thorne conversing with Lyra Meadowbrook, a potential opportunity. Lyra had commissioned me to create a detailed map of her property. I was compensated with valuable resources. Perhaps she would speak on my behalf. Inside the tea shop, I greeted them. "Good day, Lyra. You look well." She appeared preoccupied. "Elder Thorne, I didn't expect to see you here." "Silas," she acknowledged. "I understand you have received your notice." My hopes dwindled. Yes. I was wondering if Elder Thorne was aware of my community service. I recently completed a rather complex project. "He is aware of your contributions," she interrupted. "It changes nothing. The spirits demand balance. Sometimes that balance requires sacrifice. I left without another word. On the edge of the village, the observation point, a natural rock outcropping, overlooked the surrounding valley. The next time the signal beacon was lit, it would mark the beginning. Approaching the outcropping, I found my friend Lyra, sitting with her arms wrapped around her legs. She held a notice. I felt a surge of anger. She was too kind for this. "I suppose your activism angered the village council," I said. She nodded and showed me my notice. "Elder Thorne?" "Indeed." "Dreadful." I sat beside her. As I considered placing a comforting hand on her shoulder, our other companion, Finn, arrived. "Guess who just received an invitation to the grand spectacle?" he announced, waving his notice. Apparently, someone didn't appreciate my recent artistic expression on the village fountain. We called the selection the exemplary conduct evaluation because survival depended on maintaining a perfect image. Finn had unruly dark hair and mischievous green eyes. Seeing our grim expressions, he said, "What's wrong?" "I'm the one who's in trouble." We showed him our notices. "Oh." He paused. "Look, don't worry. This is what we've prepared for, remember?" That did little to reassure us. We had trained, but only as a hypothetical exercise. Finn sat between Lyra and me. "Come on, Silas, you're the strongest of us. Lyra, you're the most resourceful. And well, I'm quick on my feet. If we stay together, we'll manage." As Finn spoke, I felt a slight easing of the tension. Together, our chances were better. We devised a plan. A series of hidden caves existed in the nearby hills. We decided to rendezvous there. After concealing our supplies, we joined hands. Finn said, "No matter what happens tonight, we swear to use our lives meaningfully. No lingering in this village, becoming like everyone else. Agreed?" "Agreed," Lyra and I replied. She squeezed my hand. I returned the pressure. Then we departed. Throughout the village, celebratory music played. We walked through the deserted streets toward the observation point, where villagers gathered. Anxious 17-year-olds watched us. Further along, a small group held signs protesting the selection. I recognized some of the faces. I exchanged a glance with Lyra. She offered a weak smile. As we reached the steps, Finn bumped into a village guard. Officials intervened before the situation escalated. During the commotion, I saw Elder Thorne fix his gaze on Finn, a look of cold calculation in his eyes. He had been watching him specifically. While the village leader called out names, assistants checked us and directed us to the base of the observation point, where other candidates waited. As dusk approached, the leader took his place on a platform and spoke into a device that amplified his voice. "Villagers, welcome to the 81st annual selection." Cheers erupted. He waited for silence. "In a few moments, our candidates will have a short head start to reach designated safe zones. They must remain outside the village until dawn. Now let us acknowledge this year's seekers." He gestured to the top of the outcropping. Figures stood silhouetted against the fading light. Among them, I saw Elder Thorne. His gaze met mine. As the last light faded, the leader announced, "Candidates, prepare." We placed our hands on the rock. As the signal beacon ignited, the villagers chanted. My stomach churned. The countdown began. The signal flared. I was vaguely aware of others moving, scrambling away. Then I moved. Fear propelled me. I ran toward the designated meeting point. I vaulted a low fence and sprinted across a field, guided by the rising moon. Lyra and Finn were waiting by the designated landmark, a gnarled ancient oak. I had delayed them. I felt a pang of guilt. Finn tossed me my pack. I quickly put it on and secured a small multi-tool to my belt. A wide expanse of open land lay between us and the hills. We were halfway across, completely exposed, when a faint melody drifted on the breeze. A traditional village folk tune. The seekers were mobilizing. Most seekers patrolled on foot, but some used vehicles to flush out candidates. "Quick," Finn whispered, diving into a shallow ditch. Lyra and I followed suit as a vehicle's light swept over us. I held my breath until the music faded. Finn cautiously raised his head, one hand on a small, self-made dart launcher he had fashioned. He gave the signal. We crawled until we reached the edge of the hills. We moved carefully in the darkness, traversing uneven terrain. The hills opened onto a secluded valley where several homesteads were scattered. We sought shelter, but every structure was fortified. Some livestock became agitated as we passed, so we took cover behind a low stone wall that separated one homestead from the wilderness. It was a substantial barrier, offering some protection. For the next few hours, we observed the surroundings, rationing our water. As the night deepened, we heard distant sounds, shouts, the baying of hounds, but the activity remained distant. This did little to calm my nerves. Every passing moment meant more areas had been searched. At the fourth bell, one rotation before sunrise, Lyra whispered, "I need to attend to a personal matter." "We'll signal if anything happens," Finn said. After she disappeared into the undergrowth, the wind died down and I heard a faint clicking sound, Finn's teeth. I smirked. Beneath his bravado, he was just as apprehensive as I was. "Everything all right?" I asked, nudging him. "Of course," he said, giving me a light punch. I'm so bored I considered starting a signal fire just to liven things up. We were silent for a moment. Then, he said, "So, you and Lyra, eh?" "Don't," I said. "Come on, it's obvious. You should tell her after this is over." "You think she feels the same? Why else do you think I never made a move?" The thought made me feel a surge of hope. Until Finn grabbed my arm. He pulled me down and signaled for silence, pointing upwards. Peering over the wall, I saw lights moving along the valley road. Elder Thorne's vehicle. I ducked down. What if this area was the last place he hadn't searched? "This was a terrible plan," I whispered. "We need to find Lyra." He stopped me. He looked over the wall again, remaining silent. The tension grew unbearable. I whispered, "Well?" "He's just returning home, I think." As I forced myself to look, a light came on inside the homestead. "He doesn't know we're here," Finn whispered, relief in his voice. "He probably gave up. We just need to stay hidden for another rotation, then we're—" The next thing I knew, something struck Finn, and he collapsed. A small dart protruded from his neck. "Hands visible!" A village guard emerged from the trees holding a dart rifle. He repeated the command several times before I reacted. He made me move away from Finn and retrieved the dart rifle, along with a small tracking device from Finn's belt. "Impressive, isn't it?" he said, holding it up. "These new devices are quite effective. The council spared no expense. They're very motivated to capture certain individuals." He glanced in the direction Lyra had gone. He had placed a tracker on Finn during the initial gathering. "Now," he said, "where is the other one?" My legs trembled. "What other one?" I stammered. "The one who organized the protests. The council offered a substantial reward for her capture. They believe her influence is disruptive to the balance." I clenched my jaw. I stepped forward. "Careful," he warned, aiming the dart rifle at me. "I have no quarrel with you. Just tell me where she is and I'll let you go. Be quick." He gestured to lights approaching along the valley road. Elder Thorne had heard the commotion. I was trapped. Running meant certain capture, staying meant the same, but betraying Lyra was unthinkable. Perhaps she had already reached. A shadow moved behind the guard, a dark shape with a glint of metal. I forced myself not to look, saying, "That was a cowardly tactic." I needed to distract him. "Effective, though," he replied. "Why not face us fairly?" Enough stalling. Lyra launched herself at the guard. As he reacted, she grabbed his dart rifle. They struggled. The rifle discharged, the dart flying harmlessly into the air. I charged, tackling the guard. We fell in a heap. Lyra and I scrambled to our feet, but we froze when we saw the guard clutching his side, a dark stain spreading on his tunic. Lyra's small knife was embedded in his side. She stared at her hands, her face pale. I was paralyzed. Then, a projectile whizzed past my ear. A warning shot. Elder Thorne had arrived. Lyra and I ran. I considered going back for Finn, but I knew I was the primary target and Lyra wouldn't leave me. At the edge of the trees, I yelled, "Here I am!" I hadn't retrieved any weapons. If I stayed in the dense foliage, I could potentially evade Elder Thorne until sunrise. He was an older man, but the darkness made every step treacherous. Thorns tore at my skin, and roots tripped me. I stumbled, falling heavily. I got up, spitting out dirt. My ribs ached, and my pack felt heavier with each step. I realized I'd dropped my multi-tool during the struggle with the guard. The light disappeared and reappeared behind the trees, growing closer. I gasped for air. I crawled through bushes, covering my mouth. "Where are you hiding?" The voice was close. Heavy footsteps circled my position. Elder Thorne rustled the undergrowth with his staff. He knew I was nearby. I scanned the area. A clearing lay ahead. Perhaps I could lure him there? I moved cautiously. I was lucky. Moments later, from the exact spot I had just vacated, Elder Thorne's voice boomed, "Enough games. Show yourself." I reached the clearing and pressed myself against a tree. A steep, rocky slope descended into darkness. I couldn't see the bottom. I took a deep breath and snapped a twig. Elder Thorne charged. I fumbled for my multi-tool. Gone. I checked my pockets. Empty. Where was it? The elder burst into the clearing, stopping at the edge of the slope. He turned, his staff raised. I lunged, grabbing the staff. I only intended to deflect it, but it flew from his grip and tumbled over the edge. The elder struck me. I fell back, hitting a low branch. Blood trickled from my nose. "So," Elder Thorne said, "you decided to fight. I almost regret this. It would have been cleaner if you had simply accepted your fate." He assumed a fighting stance. I raised my hands. "Wait," I shouted. He paused. "If you're going to do this, at least tell me why. Why me? Why Lyra? Why Finn?" "Why?" he scoffed. "Does there need to be a reason? The spirits demand balance. Disruptions must be rectified." "You mean I didn't do something to offend you?" "No, it's not personal, Silas. It's simply necessary. You're going to do this and for no reason? When I was your age, I had to endure this. It made me stronger. It's tradition. That's flawed logic. What about those who didn't survive? What about those who are taken and never seen again? Enough excuses. This ends now." He struck me. I retaliated, drawing on my anger and the desperate need to survive. The fight was brutal. Remembering Finn's training, I changed my tactics. I used feints and dodged his blows. He began to tire. His final strike was weak. I ducked and countered. He stumbled backward toward the slope. Before he could recover, I pushed him. He fell, the sounds of his descent echoing through the night. I stood at the edge until I heard movement nearby. I turned. Lyra emerged from the shadows. I rushed to her. "Where's Elder Thorne?" she asked, her voice trembling. I gestured to the slope. Exhausted, we leaned against a tree. We waited for dawn. I held her close, the image of Finn's still form burning in my mind. The signal beacon ignited in the distance. We had survived. But at what cost? Hand in hand, we walked toward the village, avoiding the main paths. We talked about our future. On the other side of the mountains, I would find work as a cartographer's assistant while Lyra pursued her studies. Perhaps we would return and document the event, creating maps and accounts of the injustice. We would find a way to end the selection. We owed it to Finn. And that's the end of the Solstice trials. A harrowing night of courage, betrayal, and a fight for freedom reminds us that standing against the darkness often requires sacrifice. Some traditions bind communities, while others bury the truth beneath layers of fear. If tonight's story left you questioning the cost of survival, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more haunting tales. Until next time, remember, sometimes survival is the greatest rebellion. This is the Midnight Narrator signing off, but always watching from the shadows.